More talk about the realities of the trade war. China has a new largest trading partner. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Rojo Reads the News. I'm your host, Paul. Today we have a business article talking about foreign trade. This article comes from That's Guangzhou. China has a new largest trading partner. Who could it be? I think it's kind of obvious. Many of you probably already know it is. This is by Ryan Gandolfo. China now trades more with Southeast Asia than both the EU and the US, according to Chinese export data from the first quarter of 2020. Of course, the ASEAN countries. We all know that was going to be the case. You look at the investment going down in there and the growth of these developing economies down there. It's inevitable. Just the geography alone of it will make that obvious. The Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, accounted for close to 16% of PRC's exports in the first quarter of the year, totaling over 140 billion US dollars. ASEAN overtook the EU this quarter, however. Analysts expect the European trade bloc to regain its position as China's largest trading partner after pandemic subsides, according to ASEAN Briefing. There are 10 members in the ASEAN trade bloc, including Brunei, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, the Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam. One side note, I've been to many of these countries, most of them, and they're all fantastic, very unique cultures with their own histories, their own languages, and the ASEAN bloc, much like the EU, has a language barrier issue. And what language do they use to communicate? They use English. And that's another big reason why a lot of Chinese business people want to learn English. Not so they can do business with the Americas, but so they can continue to do business with ASEAN countries. Well, many of my students are factory owners and business people, foreign trade people. They don't do business with Europe and America. They do business solely with ASEAN countries. And they learn English so that they can do that. It's just an interesting little side note about being an English teacher. Meanwhile, only around 14% of exports from China in the first 3 months of the year were shipped to the U.S. Quartz reports this quarter was by far the U.S.'s lowest share in the past 15 years, with the country accounting for nearly 20% of Chinese exports in 2018. However, the U.S. is still China's largest single country export market. Oh, okay. So the title of the article is a little, I don't want to say it's misleading, but it's like temporary. I did see other graphs, though, that were investment in America from Chinese companies is down to its lowest in a very, very long time. Chinese State Councilor and Foreign Minister Wang Yi said the cooperation between China and the Southeast Asian trade bloc even increased despite the pandemic, with China-ASEAN trade in goods growing by over 6% in the first quarter, as reported by Xinhua. Wang said, "What does not kill us makes us stronger," referring to the ongoing economic challenges while paraphrasing an oft-quoted line attributed to a German philosopher. Wang also stated that China will always view ASEAN as a key aspect of its neighborhood diplomacy. Yeah, it's a very, very big part of the Belt Initiative. It's little surprise that Chinese exports to the U.S. are on the decline given the higher tariffs placed in the swath of goods during the trade war. In January, the two countries agreed on a Phase 1 trade deal that cut tariffs on some Chinese goods in exchange for China agreeing to increase its purchases of American products and services by $200 billion over the next 2 years. Although with the public health crisis crippling the global economy, China may be unable to meet that target. Yeah, they're definitely not going to meet it. It's going to have to be renegotiated. I mean, it was an ambitious goal to begin with. And after all of this, it's going to be impossible to meet these goals. So everything's going to have to be renegotiated. That trade deal is worthless now. While work and school have largely resumed across China, the country's economy is still reeling from the shutdown of many businesses following the coronavirus outbreak. Last month, China reported a gross domestic product contracted by 6.8% in the first quarter of 2020, the first decline in quarterly GDP since the country started publishing the data in 1992. So 6.8% is what they believe the GDP contracted by in the first quarter. I would believe that. I was here, I saw it. There was no activity going on. I mean, you talk about lockdowns in the West, that's not what happened here. Here it was locked down. I mean, it was unlike anything you'll ever see. You know, America's seen lockdown, but it's not on the same scale that it was here. So that doesn't surprise me. But what has surprised me is the quickness that we've seen the economy get back on its feet here and how fast things are moving here. It really is a testament to the resiliency of the economy. Even more concerning, the PRC's top brass decided not to set a target for economic growth for 2020. I think that's fine. I think it would be too difficult to set a target because there's so many unknowns, not just here in China, but throughout the world. And China obviously cannot control what other countries do. So it's very difficult to do any kind of projections in the near future. I have many business owning friends here in China that have found forecasting to be nearly impossible to do this year. And so everything is happening kind of day to day, week to week. But it did say that the ASEAN countries would fall back to number 2 when the EU comes back online. That's probably going to be the case, but I've been to the ASEAN countries and I see what's going on in those countries, and the amount of growth that they're experiencing right now is phenomenal. It would not surprise me if the ASEAN countries do end up being a permanent number 1 trading partner with China. Years ago, they had Trans-Pacific Partnership, which China was not a part of, and it was designed to contain China's economy. And then our country pulled out of that, and that allowed China to go after these countries with aggression, and they did, and they're succeeding. It's not a bad thing. I think it's probably a good thing for the entire world economy, and especially for these developing countries in Southeast Asia to see them move up the ranks a little bit more. I'm excited for it. What do you think? Comment below. Let me know.